Hey, Erson,
Hi, Reese.
how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Very well, thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining.
Oh,
Thanks for
good.
coming.
Much appreciate you asking me.
Welcome to Spotlight a Conversation with. In this series, we dive into the lives and careers of fascinating people. Our guest is Reese Madigan, also known for his role in American Shaolin, a cult classic, especially here in Germany. Reese, thanks for coming. This is Spotlight a Conversation with Reese Madigan.
It's my complete pleasure to be asked. I was quite flattered when I heard that you were a fan of American Shaolin. I went to Germany about 10 years ago. We had an autograph signing for
Yes.
other 90s martial arts actors. Hi, I'm Reese Madigan. I had the pleasure and the thrill of starring in American Shaolin, King of the Kickboxers Part 2, a seasonal film that's shot in mainland China. And I am just as excited about coming to Berlin and meeting all of you, and of course, seeing all the fantastic stars that are going to be on hand August 14th and 15th at the Meet Your Stars convention. We're going to have a great time, and I'm excited to see all the stars myself. So come on out and join us in Berlin, August 14th and 15th at the Meet Your Stars convention. And I was so humbled to be in that company. I mean, I was with everyone from, the list was incredible. Richard Norton and Lauren Avedon and Don Wilson and
Wow.
Cynthia Rothrock and Matthias Hughes and Jeff Speakman and Conan Lee and Keith Vitale. Uh, it was just spectacular to be in that group of people, and I didn't know that how popular my film was in Germany because it didn't get a tremendous release here. It pretty much went straight to video, and I was so surprised to be asked then, and I'm grateful and surprised to be asked now.
Yeah, that's so great. Also known as King of Kickboxer 2, American Shaolin, but mostly people know it as American Shaolin. And after that visit in Germany, you never came back to Germany. That was the last time.
That was the only time I've been to Germany, and it was I think a 3 4 day weekend, and
Yeah,
so it was a beautiful time. It was really great to see, and I pretty much only got to see Berlin, but everybody was so warm and kind, and it's a beautiful city. So yeah, I would love to come back, but it hasn't worked out that
yeah,
way.
hopefully. So, Reese, my first question is how you start typically your day.
My day starts early. Uh, I live alone in downtown Manhattan. I have a very spoiled cat who wakes me up to be fed,
Yeah, okay.
usually when the sun is up. And I live in an apartment complex that has a really nice courtyard that not many people use. And so what I usually do is I get up and feed my cat, and I go out in the courtyard. And I have a Tai Chi practice, and so
Hmm.
I do a little bit of Tai Chi to warm up. And my martial arts practice is still very much with me. So I do some Tai Chi to warm up, and then I do a kicking series and some kata from my karate background, uh, which was pretty much my only hardstyle martial arts were
Hmm.
my main thing for most of my life. And then I usually end with Tai Chi and a little meditation and uh, and prayer, and then I get on with my day. And that's usually, and if I don't do it in the morning, my day is always a little bit off. I mean, I try and do it at some point in the afternoon, but I'm very grateful to have this courtyard that, again, nobody uses, and I'm the strange guy downstairs who they see doing these weird movements. But I began doing karate when I was 13 years old,
Hmm.
and I was very close with my teacher. And that training is the only, it was very traditional training. It's the only reason I'm sure that I got that
Yeah.
film. I did not set out to be a martial arts movie, actor. I grew up watching on Saturdays, they would have reruns of the Shaw Brothers
Hmm.
Kung Fu movies. And so after karate class, I would always watch, that, or my friends and I would take a bus about an hour away to see a double feature at a town called White Plains in New York. We used to go to the Carefree Cinema, I remember, and watch the Kung Fu double feature when I got a little bit older. I'd go with them on the bus. So yeah, I didn't set out to do any of this. It kind of found me. Um, I was doing
Hmm.
I was doing a play in in New York. Was doing mainly Shakespeare at the very, very beginning of my career. My first play was Richard III in
Hmm.
Central Shakespeare's Richard III at Joe Papp's Public Theater, the New York Shakespeare Festival, and Denzel Washington was playing Richard III. So that
Wow.
was a pretty amazing opportunity to begin my career. And then I got lucky enough to do a bunch of plays back to back,
Hmm.
and there was a lot of swordplay involved, so my martial arts came in handy
Hmm.
with that. I usually had pretty small supporting roles, but I did a lot of the stage combat because I had a facility with that, and they were looking for an actor who could do martial arts. And I
Yeah.
had many auditions, and I was cast as Drew, and I was thrilled because it was a dream come true. I could not believe that I was going to
Yeah.
be in a kung fu movie.
So you are in New York, or
Yeah,
where are you?
I, li I live in New York City in Manhattan. Yeah.
In Manhattan. And are you so? I think you are a very spiritual guy. Then, if you do meditating, was that since 13 years old when you started karate, or you
That was
discovered this later?
that's a great question, Erson. It was very much a part of my teacher was a very traditional uh teacher, and we always started karate class with meditating in the beginning and meditating at the end, and that was one thing that was always the same. The class would progress in a very in a typical way, but meditating before and after, kneeling zazen meditation on a hardwood floor that I got very used to kneeling very quickly, was how we began. And that was sort of my way. I wasn't raised in a very strict religious household. I was
Hmm.
raised by a single mother, and she was a very busy woman. And karate was what started to get me in touch with the spiritual side. I was not a naturally good karateka in the beginning, I'm not
Yes.
naturally good at all, but I stuck with it, and my teacher was a very tough guy, and I came to love him very much. But I was also, as many people in my generation were in traditional dojos,
Mm.
I had a healthy fear of my teacher. And
So,
because yeah, he'd walk around with a stick. If you weren't doing what he wanted you to do, he'd hit you, you'd get
yeah,
push-ups,
he
or
hit you. Wow.
yeah, yeah.
So very like American Shaolin, huh? It's a little bit related.
Was very similar. I mean, he was really, he was an Italian American guy, so he was very kind of, he talked like this, except that was the only part of him that was
Uh,
Italian. I think he was a monk in a past life because we very much had a Karate Kid kind of dojo. He did every push up, every kick, every punch, everything with us, and I was his first kid student. He opened up the school, and I was a timid, weak kid, and I wanted something to give me some confidence, and nobody signed up. So for the first month, I had private lessons with him, and we got close. And then about 2 months, more like 6 months into it, other kids joined, and I started to feel bullied a little bit, and I stopped coming. And I
mm,
remember he called me at my house, and he said, "Well, you want to be an actor?" Because I like to do plays then. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "If somebody was bullying you in a play, would you quit the play?" I said, "No." "Well,
mm.
then why are you quitting
Great
this?"
advice. Yeah.
And so I came back, and I never stopped coming. And I was not an exceptional martial artist, but I was a kid who came all the time. And I did what my teacher told me. And I was his first student. I became his first black belt. And the classes were sometimes brutal. And the meditation came in handy because it really helped me quiet my fears, quiet my misgivings. I knew I would always feel good after I left class than when I came
Mm,
in. I didn't want to come, but it was a way of just kind of focusing and settling the mind. And that led into, as I got older, spiritual pursuits for research for American Shaolin. There was a gentleman named Sifu Jai who had a smaller part in the beginning of the movie, and he was a Kung Fu master in Chinatown. And the stunt guys, Corey Yun and Yun Da and Ah Fong and Ah Yong, knew this guy was a legitimate Chinese Kung Fu man, and I had a Japanese karate background, and they said you should make this guy
mm.
your temporary teacher. So I offered him some tea. And so before I came to China, we shot in New Jersey for about 2 weeks before we went to China. But then there was a big break. So for about month and a half, 2 months, I went to this guy's house in Lower Manhattan, and he would make me climb the banister of his tenement apartment, just like a kung fu movie. And I'd go to the yeah,
Yeah.
I would have to bring him breakfast. He would always be asleep. He was very much like a gruff kung fu guy. And I climbed the banister, and he would start to teach me some kung fu forms, mostly a Hung Gar or Hung Fut kung fu. So I learned a five animal form and a kicking form. And he also taught me a lot about Buddhism, because he
Mm.
transcribed Buddhist scripture, and he spoke English and Cantonese and Mandarin, and was a Buddhist and a Taoist and all these things. And he taught me how, not just Kung Fu, but how to comport myself when I went to China. When you come into a temple, this is how you behave. This is how you pay respect to the temple.
Mm.
This is, you step over the ledge, because, he said that, evil spirits travel in straight lines, and so they don't want to cling onto your pants. So you don't step on the ledge, you step over to come in. And so all of these little things that I wouldn't have known anything about, he gave me an education. He taught me something about the Buddhist pantheon.
Mm.
And so when I was in China, there were people who had been at this temple their whole life, that had survived the Cultural Revolution. And I got to, in sign language, essentially, sort of show pictures of some of the deities that I'd come into contact with in meditation. And I felt they felt like it was a sign of respect. And I was very grateful to have had that Kung Fu tutelage, and that Buddhist tutelage and that Taoist tutelage, which I kept up for about 4 or 5 years after the film wrapped. I would go down to Chinatown and train with this guy, with his teachers, but always back to my own teacher, Tony, in karate. And Tony passed away in
Mm.
2000, and the other black belts in the school and I didn't take any money, but we kept training. And whenever I wasn't doing a play or doing a show or something like that, and I was around in New York, I would volunteer my time to keep the doors open, and that was a great gift. And we did that for almost 20 years until we stopped teaching karate. But I got so much from that training that I wanted to give back, and I feel like I was able to give back for to some small degree what I got.
Yeah, that sounds great. So it's very interesting because it's kind of like you have been chosen to do this movie. So you almost prepared for it
Sort
before.
of, yeah.
It was, yeah, it's very interesting story. So after the movie, um, was your goal to become a martial arts actor, or you just wanted to do more stage performances?
I didn't have any desire to be a martial arts actor,
Mm.
because karate and the kung fu that I did was all for me.
Mm.
It was what I grew up doing. It's what made me feel good in my heart. I felt a loyalty to my teacher. There were times when I was tired and I didn't want to go, and he had a very sort of strict way about him. If you're a black belt and you're in town, you get into the dojo, and if there's a promotion ceremony, you're going to come and you're going to fight. You're going to do
Mm.
kata. And so I couldn't let my karate go. It was sort of even when I was in my 20s and 30s, and I got tired of it, and kind of went away from it a little while. He was always there to bring me back. And I'm very grateful now. And my practice is much changed. I'm not the same
Yeah.
22-year-old kid who can do those helicopter kicks, but
Mm.
I practice my kicks for myself to keep myself limber. I practice Tai Chi because I'm getting older and I have aches and pains, and I've had a lot of injuries in my career.
Oh, okay.
And so this keeps me limber, and it's a quieter practice, you know, that keeps you young, I think, in many ways. It's not to me any kind of fighting art, and I don't go to, compete or anything like that. But my martial arts is very personal, and it's a daily practice for which I'm very grateful. There's almost not a day that goes by that I don't do some kind of training. And again,
Mm.
I'm not the same. There are guys like the people that I was with at that autograph signing, like, champions, Keith Vitale or, Richard
Mm.
Norton. It's just absolutely stunning and incredible. And Cynthia Rothrock continues to go around and teach seminars, and Don Wilson and Jeff Speakman and all these people. I was just humbled to be around them because I saw their movies when I was younger
Yes.
and respected the high level of martial artists they were, just as I respected the stunt guys. I mean, those are the people that I connected most to on
Mm.
set during American Shaolin. Yun Kuei and Yunda and Afong and Ah Young were the two the two guys who were their assistants. And I mean, the body of their work, they grew up, they were legends. There were movies,
Yes.
these guys. And so yeah, so it's been separate from me. I mean, I acting really is where my soul is, and my soul is in the theater, and I care very much about it. I do some
Mm.
TV work, I do some films, but also
But you transitioned more to a stage actor in
I
the.
did. I think I'm more comfortable in the theater. And it's also, the way life takes you,
Mm.
I would have loved to have been more of a movie actor in America because those actors were the ones that I admired and sort of got me into wanting to be an actor. However, you know, uh, it didn't happen in that
Yeah.
same way that I thought it would. But it also, I think that, I do have faith and I do think that God leads us, because I do believe in God. It's a personal God, and I don't put that on anybody else, but leads me in a certain way. And I know that I feel closest to the God of my understanding when I'm in a
Mm.
doing a play. It's, my acting teacher, who is very much like my martial arts teacher in that he's with me every day, even though he's not on the earth anymore. He told me when I was in school, because I trained way before American Shaolin, I went to a very rigorous conservatory, much like you have in Europe and in America as well. If you want to be an actor, you often go to these theater conservatory training programs, which are very tough. But this teacher said it's going to take you 20 years to be an actor.
Oh,
And
okay.
and when I was 18 years old or 20 years old, I laughed at that. I said, I'm an actor right now.
Mm.
And the longer I've been in the business, the and the art, not just the business, but the art of acting, I really do agree with that. I'm learning how to get out of my own way a little bit. I
Yeah.
think the highest level of achievement in theater is to try and just be a vessel, to try and do all of your work, which is as rigorous as any kind of physical training, and do all your preparation and all your rehearsal and all the technique that you've come up with if you're not naturally inspired by it, all the things you do to that I do to create, you know, a human being on stage. I practice and then I try and let go. And so before I come on stage, I just try and be a
Mm.
vessel. I remember Al Pacino said, and I
Yeah.
admire him very greatly, he said, there's a prayer of Michelangelo, Lord, please free me of myself that I may please you. And I think the highest level of acting is you disappear and you
Mm.
become a vessel, and something larger than you comes through you to tell a
Mm.
story. And I think to some degree, as you said before, I know I have no short answers. I apologize,
No problem.
but as you said before, I do feel like, especially with American Shaolin, I was led in a certain direction. I had such a passion. I was very much like Drew. I was a very insecure kid. I came from a single mom. I got picked
Mm.
on. Uh, and I wanted to be something greater than myself. And I wanted to learn how to be tough. And along the line, like Drew in the movie, I learned that it wasn't about being tough. It was about being humble and about
Mm.
being of service to other people. And that's what I try and do. Not successfully all the time, but that's what I try and do in life. And I'm lucky enough to work in the theater as much as I have. But I think now even more so, as I'm older, I always thought to be a great actor was the highest level that I could achieve, and that's not it at all. It's to be a good person and to give
Okay.
in.
Wow,
So
there's so much topics, and but Reese, I believe you started this journey, and it's not the end. It will still go on, and you will still discover more in the future. So, um, but what happened after the movie came out? So you said you kind of lost the movie, so and you were very surprised to see that there's a level of exception and cult classic that this movie is so famous here in Germany, for example, and other countries as well, I guess, because I think the people see the passion, the it's you don't see an actor, you see a passionate guy in the movie, so you feel the energy when you watch the movie. So what happened after that movie? You said, okay, more roles, or did you search for roles? Was it a hard time? Was it a good start for you?
You know, first of all, thank you. That's the highest compliment and that's what I strove to do in the movie. I just wanted to be a person. I wanted to be a person on stage, on film. Uh, Life as an actor is a tricky one, and no two actors have the same life. Um, and no two actors have the same
Mm,
kind of, I don't know, success is a funny thing, but there were people that I was in school with who have become very famous, and in America anyway, and certainly all
mm,
over the world. And we're still friends, and nothing has changed in that relationship, just the way the outside world sort of perceives them, or if people see them on the street, they stop them. Um, for me, I just kept trying to be an actor. I did what I was told. I had an agent, and my agent would get me into
mm,
certain rooms, and then it was up to me if I got the part or not. And there were so many, it's such a strange profession, because 90% of the time, maybe 95, 99% of the time, you go up for
mm,
these roles and you don't get the part. And often it doesn't have anything to do with you. It's just the person who's behind the camera has a different concept for why, which is when I got American Shaolin, I couldn't believe it. So it was I'll take it again back to the beginning. So I auditioned for American Shaolin, and I did a really good audition, I thought. And I did some martial arts for them, and I felt like I had a good showing for myself. And then I didn't hear anything, but I so believed in this script. I kept the script in my bag
mm.
for weeks. I didn't let go of the script because I didn't hear anything. And usually, if you don't hear anything within a little few days, you let it go.
Yeah.
I kept the script in my bag. And I was doing a play, and one of the guys who was in the dressing room of the play with me said, my wife is casting extras for this movie called American Shaolin. I said, yeah, I read for it. And he knew I was a martial artist. He said, you should go up. I said, yeah, I auditioned, and nothing happened. And he said, yeah, I think they were pursuing people who they were names, that the producers really wanted a name or a star to be in it. But
Mm,
they haven't found that person, or that person hasn't agreed. And so this guy who was my dressing room mate talked to his wife, and the next day I had another audition.
mhm.
So I went in, and then things started moving very quickly. And then I had another call back for the director and the producers and stuff like that. And in a week's time after that, after carrying the script around with me and not being willing to let it go, within a week, I was cast in the movie, and I had to leave the play that I was in to begin filming. And it's funny, this at the same time I got cast in a musical in the theater. I
Mm,
think I think the role, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. I turned this role down, and I think it went to Steve Zahn, who has gone on to have a great career in
mm.
American film. And but I turned it down for American Shaolin because I knew that I'd much rather do the movie. And so you never know where life is going to take you. And so when the movie ended, I came back. My hair was very short, I was bald, and I got very,
Yes.
s- I got really, really sick when I was in China doing the movie. We didn't have any days off. It was the hardest work to this day, the hardest
Mm.
work I've ever done in my life. And
So
we would,
it was a kind of low budget movie, or
yeah, it was a pretty low
so
budget
yeah,
movie.
there was no, you know,
There was a union. I mean, I was a Screen Actors Guild union. I
mm,
was protected in that way, but again, I was in China, and back in
okay.
early
So
90s in China, there was no way to communicate. There was no internet.
yeah,
There was
okay, I
people
understand.
welcome.
Yeah.
And so I was pretty much, whatever they told me to do, I would do.
And I'm sorry, and before that, have you also been in another country, or was that the first time leaving? America and going to China, something
Oh,
like that?
sorry, yeah, I studied in England, and a couple of years prior to that, in 1988, I studied at the National Theatre in London, and so that was my second time out of the country. So
Mm.
I've been to England and France, but
But
but a
China is a different area.
completely different. China was a much different country back then, and
Yes.
we were shooting not in the cities. We were shooting really in the middle of nowhere, and often there were places that didn't have plumbing or anything like that. It was all very,
Yeah. Kind of
it
insecurity there on site.
just a different, just a completely different country. I
Yeah.
was privileged, and
Cultural shock, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, it was also 2 years after the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Mm.
And I remember getting into Beijing, and I had an experience of watching what had unfolded a few years prior on television. And it was so locked down in China that you weren't allowed to talk about that at all. But
Mm.
you could still see the treads from the tanks in Tiananmen Square on the
Mm.
pavement, but nobody would talk about it. And it was very locked down. And I didn't realize until we were in the beginning of filming that life in China is much different than life in the United States. And life under communism was very different and very, very locked down
Mm.
after after Tiananmen. And there were people on set whose job was to spy for the party, essentially. Their job was to keep an eye on me. They may have had one job on paper, but their job was to spy on me. I was
Yeah.
told at one point I couldn't talk to some of the other actors off stage or off screen because they thought that I was corrupting them.
Oh my
And
God.
uh,
Yeah. Mm.
there was a lot of stuff that I had,
Pressure. Yeah.
well, pressure. And I grew up here with a level of freedom where I was, where that's fundamentally different than it was in China at the time. And there was no reasoning with the government or, hey, I can talk to anybody I want. No, you can't, because
Mm.
they're in prison and there's nothing that they can do about that. And so as a privileged Westerner, it was a real eye opener for me. And also to be working with so many actors who had come through the Cultural Revolution that didn't talk about it very much because it was dangerous, because they could go to be
Yes.
re-educated. So
So have they warned you before, or have you discovered it at place? So on
say that again.
so I mean, have they warned you before that there was something like that, or
They
have
said
you uncovered it there when you
they
was in
didn't,
China?
I mean, all I really did was I had to make sure that I had all the shots that I needed to go there and to
Yes.
piece it together and to just show up and to work. And I did. So a lot of this I found out the first week. There's a montage in American Shaolin in the beginning in the Forbidden City. You see a shot of Drew Carson, in this beautiful place. And so we had a permit to shoot in the Forbidden City for a day. And something happened, and I don't know what it was, but the people who issued the permit threw us out. They said, "You're not going to film here anymore. You have to
Mm.
leave." And there was
Okay.
no, "Hey, we have a permit." Like in New York City, you have a
Uh,
permit. You
then
you have a
that's
right to
it.
film.
Yeah.
In
Mm.
China, no. If an official says you have to leave, you have to leave. Uh, and so it was an education that I began to get the more I was there, when I saw that people were nervous. We couldn't talk about certain things. There were different customs. There were different things you didn't talk about. Um, the level of, you know,
Mm.
like the water, I had to be very careful about drinking water. I ended up getting dysentery when I was over there. I got very, very sick and lost a lot of weight because I remember we had one particularly hot day of shooting, and we
Mm.
jumped in the lake afterwards because we were
Okay.
all exhausted after 16 hours. And I think I picked up an intestinal
Okay.
bug, but I didn't get a day off. So we were on these
Oh my
sets,
God. Yeah.
and I lost all this weight, and I had to send back to America, and it took a few weeks to get some electrolyte powder to put in
Mm.
water to help me through this,
And did
to
it
help.
help?
It did, but again, I didn't have a day off. That's why if
Oh,
you see
that's
me at the
so.
beginning of the movie, I was a skinny kid coming into it, but if you see me in the beginning of the
Uh,
movie and you see me at the end of the movie, I am like your little finger because I lost
yeah.
so much weight,
Oh
you
my
know,
God. Yeah.
could not keep the weight on me. uh, Cliff Lenderman, who was an amazing martial artist who was over there, had the same thing. He came and he was just completely bulked out. And he looks great throughout the movie, but he said, yeah, I'm not able to lift over here or eat the same way I was. The nutrition is different over there. He said, I can't keep weight on because I can't keep the calories, you
But
know?
as an audience, you think it's supposed to be like that because you see him training and doing all this stuff, and then at the end he's like, this new guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess life imitated art in that way. But I'll tell you, man, what a gift. Some of these temples were 2,000 years old. There were places in China where I remember there were some people who were touching my face because they thought I was a ghost, because they
Oh,
hadn't seen a Caucasian person before. Because I would come to these places and we'd be in my costume all day. I'd come to set and be in costume, and my head was shaved, and I was in a monastery, and people would do a double take and think, what the hell is this white person doing
so
here?
so you didn't need to do method acting, so
It was, man.
you
I
just
just
lived it
showed up.
there.
Yeah, I just showed up, man. I just showed up. What a
So,
dream. What a dream.
have you ever visited China after that incident?
I've always wanted to. I never did. Again, I want to be careful what I say here. It was a very, very difficult physical
Hmm.
shoot. And at the end, everybody from the production team went home,
Yes.
and they said, you have to shoot a few more days. And I stayed, and somebody who is not affiliated with the movie took me to the airport and said, you just need to get on this plane. And we got to the airport, and he turned around and he said, oh, and I was exhausted after all this shooting.
Hmm.
He said, there's no planes out for another month and a half, 2 months.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't believe it. And the producer was home. He was my translator, really. So he was home. And the guy who took me to the airport took me to a hotel and checked me in. And that was it. He left. And
Then?
I had no way to get home. So of course I freaked out on the inside, and I made a lot of phone calls, and the production company wasn't of any help. So I had some
What,
hard feelings about that. They
what an
didn't really,
experience, man.
yeah, they didn't really help me out. And I don't want to talk badly about them, but that experience was upsetting.
Hmm.
And I did have an open ticket. And so I knew enough Chinese after 2 days of freaking out and not knowing what to do, uh, to go to the airline office in Beijing. I and and I somehow found my way there in a taxi, and I had this ticket.
Yeah.
There was a person who spoke English, because there
Yeah.
weren't a lot of people who spoke English. And she said, "Oh, you have an open ticket." And she said, "In 3 days, you fly to Tokyo, and then we'll fly you to JFK.
Hmm.
No problem."
Okay.
Where I couldn't accomplish, I was thinking I need to take a train to Guangzhou, and then I'll take a hovercraft to Hong Kong, and then so there was a lot of freaking out that happened, but ultimately, a higher power took care of me, and a lovely woman at the United Airlines office helped me out, and I got home. But that was the scariest part. One of the scariest parts was just I was so exhausted, so tired, so wrung out, and I thought I'm stranded here for months and I can't get home. And I remember when I finally got to JFK Airport, there's a marble floor.
Hmm.
My brother was waiting for me at the airport, my brother Rich, and I got on my hands and knees and I kissed the floor of JFK
Oh
Airport,
my God.
and then I hugged my brother.
Yeah.
'Cause I was so tired because
Totally understand it. Yeah.
the work was so hard and it was so emotionally draining. But again, in hindsight, I'm grateful for all of it. But I haven't been, and so I thought after that they wanted me to come back to shoot some stuff in December. That was, I think, around late September, and they said in a
Yes.
couple of months, come back. And uh, I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't trust the company they said you
So
can come.
they wanted to reshoot. So
They wanted to do a reshoot, and there's one reshoot you can see in the movie
hmm.
that they did a reshoot with Cliff, who played the drill sergeant character, and he has a wonderful. He didn't get a chance in the movie very much to do what he does best, which was Jeet Kune Do and
Hmm.
um, very practical Filipino martial arts. He had to do a lot of Kung Fu choreography, and that wasn't his necessarily his strongest point. And so what they did is they gave him a fight scene where you see him in the village beating
Yeah.
up all these tough guys, and we watch him do this amazing choreography. And they brought him back to do that.
but
to do
but but
what he does so well, which was, and there were a couple of instances where I saw him, and again, I don't want to go into this too deeply, but we were we were in a bad situation once,
mm,
and we were being the bus we were on was being boarded by people who wanted to kill the director, and Cliff took one of the guys by the throat and pinned him to the side of the
oh
bus.
my God, yeah.
And I was like, this guy is Superman. And he still teaches to this day, and we're in touch on social media. But to me, Cliff is one of the greatest martial artists I've ever seen in my life. So
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. After declining it, so they had anything against you uh, because of the contract and
I mean, there were some
where,
they wanted me to come back, and I didn't trust that
yeah.
company. And so there were some hard feelings that, again, it's a long time ago, and I don't want to say anything negative about anybody, but
Yes. Just because
things could have been done differently, and it's okay, and it's all
yeah,
water under.
because
And
that's very interesting because what I try to accomplish here with Spotlight is, take a look behind the scenes, because not everything is dreamland in Hollywood or making movies. It's a hard job or mostly. When I talk to people directly, there is also, yeah, so many stories.
and it's funny, one of the producers I heard in an interview said that I was, difficult on set, and that upset me a lot. And with some reflection now, a few years later, I can think, okay, that was his perception. Uh, my perception was that I didn't get along very well with the director. I thought that,
Mm,
we had a very difficult relationship. And so, but we were both trying for the same thing. I wanted to give him the best, most realistic acting I could do, and he wanted something else. And so there was some tension. But I do know that every day I showed up and I did my very best to be the best person, the best martial
mm,
artist I could be. Also because, here's the thing. I wasn't just an actor. There were other people on set in that movie who were actors. I felt like I owed it to my teacher, and I owed it to just my whole martial arts training to be as respectful as possible. The
yes.
director and I did not get along very well. And there were moments when I was less than my best self. I think
Mm.
tensions
And
boiled over, artistic differences, but with the stuntmen, I never questioned anything they told me. The choreographers were my kung fu teachers in my mind's eye, and what they said, I did, and I did not question. So
I think you had this background, but did the director had a background, something like martial arts or karate?
I
So
don't know what
maybe
his
maybe that
background.
was this problem. So you kind of not sympathize with that. But I think, in my opinion, your acting was on point for sure, American
Take it.
Shaolin. So
I'll take it. So I own up to maybe I wasn't my best self at some times, but I also know that I put all that I had into it and tried to be as respectful not only to the film and the people working on the film, but to the temples that we were in,
mm,
because those were sacred places, and those were places that had been through the Cultural Revolution, where they had to hide their religion, where a lot of the temples were defaced and a lot of the religious
mm,
stuff was torn off by the communists. And so these were people who were really kind of their their spirituality was what was keeping them there through a tremendous amount of hardship. And I could feel that and sense it. And I felt it was my duty to be as respectful, especially to those temples, as I could be, and the people who were the monks in those temples. So
mm.
yeah.
Reese, you said before that you have changed. You are not anymore the same person. Can you say something to that?
Well, as I said before, and it's not just I thought it was just pertaining to theater and acting and film, but it's about life, I
Mm,
really I'm learning how to get out of my own way a little bit. Um, I've had a lot of loss in my life, now
mm.
I've been through the death of both of my parents.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry for that. Yeah.
and I was there for them, that was a great gift to be able to be
Mm.
present for them, and they both
My
had very difficult illnesses,
deep condolences. Yeah.
and I was lucky enough to be present, and And what I
That's
can tell
life, you know.
it
That's
is.
that
And
is what it takes, you know. What it's supposed to be. To family is everything, for me. So,
me too. Family is everything. And it was a great gift to be able to be there for my mom, and my dad, but really my mom at the end. And
mm,
what it gave me was, and again, I'm not pushing religion on anybody. It's
no,
a very personal thing, but I did feel the presence of God in the
mm,
room, especially when she was sick. And I had a very hard time
no,
reconciling how can I believe in a God who lets my mother suffer so? And
mm,
the answer is I don't have that answer. It's a mystery to me. However, the feeling that I got was that she was being taken care of. Even as she was suffering with dementia, there was something in the room that was taking care of her and taking care of me. And I think in recent years, that's how I've changed the most, is I'm
mm,
really trying to live as much as I can, a more grateful life, uh, and a life where I can be of service more and to be a better person. That's really the goal in my life right now. And I'm lucky enough to be able to make a living doing what I love. But even more important than that is just showing up and being a good person in the rehearsal room, on stage,
mm.
in the street, trying to do volunteer work. And I don't do it perfectly, but I try.
The best you can. So the best way you can. And my deep condolences for your loss.
Thank you.
Uh, and yeah, personally, I kind of have a feeling about what you're talking because my father has also dementia.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes very rough. You know, you question so many, even if you believe, you question so much. So that's my take. But then you realize that's life, you know.
I think,
That's
Ursa, and my heart goes out to you. I think what I learned, as hard as it was, because my mother got very, very sick during the pandemic, and I was lucky enough to have a lot of time with her. I could just go to her
mm,
house and sit with her. It's That's all it is. The important thing is to just be present. That's it.
yeah.
Just be there. And even if they don't know you or recognize it, or even if they're suffering, is to take your hand and put it on theirs and say, it's going to be okay. I love you.
Mhm.
You're being taken care of. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Is to just soothe them and make them feel okay. As difficult, as painful as that is to just be present and give them that gift.
Yeah. Oh my.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. My heart goes out to you. I understand. I'm
Yeah,
very sorry.
that's that's sometimes you don't have any influence. So it's like you said, you just take it as it is. But Reese, when you told me this story about your experience in China, I kind of felt like, as much as you had a great start with American Shaolin, I kind of think, it little affected you. Is that the reason, maybe, I'm just supposing, to have more stage work as feature films because of the experience you had there?
I don't know. I think it's just the way things worked out. I think, I've been on sets and I've done independent films and whatever. I haven't done a big film like American Shaolin, but a martial arts movie is different than an action movie is different than a regular movie,
Mm.
you know? And that experience was different
It,
than other experiences I've had. And it didn't make me want to do movies more or less. I think that the way my life has worked out is I have
mm,
arrived where I'm supposed to be. I have been given a lot of opportunity to do work on stage that I'm very passionate about. And perhaps this is where I'm most useful. Perhaps there are better film actors. Perhaps there are better people who are meant to, I mean, who knows why things work out the way they do. I'm just trying to accept the way things have worked out, and also to be grateful because I've gotten to play on Broadway. I've gotten to play off Broadway. I've gotten to play some of the great roles in Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller and the great playwrights that I've always admired when I was in drama school that I always wanted to do. I've gotten to play all those people. I've gotten to direct plays and I've gotten to write some plays. And I think the theater is where I feel the most at home,
Mm.
and it's where I feel closest to my higher power that I call God. And again, I don't mean to be overly sort of mystical or what have you about it, but I firmly believe this. This is where I'm meant to be, and this is where I can be most useful, and this is where life or God or whatever you want to call it has the place I've been put is to I've been lucky enough to be able to work in the theater. The theater is what I know, and it's where
Mm.
my heart is. So,
Great.
I'd like to
Yeah.
have done more movies, sure, but again, life is long. Maybe I'll do some more.
But
I don't
when
know.
I look up the IMDb page, for example, so you've done also many series, television,
Yeah,
feature films.
yeah.
What was for you, the best experience after Shaolin?
On TV and film, you mean, or in theater?
Yes, yes.
TV and film? Oh boy.
Any memories?
They've mostly been on the smaller level, nothing like the size of the role. So
Mm.
pretty much when you have those experiences, you show up, you're a smaller character,
That's a
you
job,
try,
you say. Yeah.
well, it's a job, but you realize that on film and TV, especially, in the States, like time is money and you have to just
You have
go
to deliver,
show
yeah.
show
Mm.
up and deliver, right? And so when you have a smaller role in these things, it's hard to let go of
Mm.
the time
Mm.
pressure. You just want to show up and be useful and make sure that everybody, because it's not about you. It's about showing up and being what they want you to be and get it done quickly. And then to be able to find some peace and quiet, almost a meditative thing within that, to be able to do your
Mm.
act, you know, in a way that is true. That's the challenge. All these people are running around and we gotta go, we gotta go, we gotta
You
go. And
could, yeah.
be able to take those moments and do your job. I mean, I had a most recently there's a show coming out called The Penguin on HBO,
Okay. Hmm.
Colin Farrell Batman spinoff.
Ah,
And
Penguin. Okay, I got it. Yeah.
I play I had a day on that show playing a police officer. And the coolest thing was I got to have Gotham City PD on my shoulder.
Yeah, great.
I've
Yeah.
loved Batman. But that was an opportunity where, for example, we shot in Chinatown. It was very busy. You can't control, like you can't control a crowd that size in a busy city like New York. You can have some control, but people are going to do what they're going to do. But I showed up and they said, "Can you drive a police car?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I can drive a car." Okay. Uh, all right. So
So
get in the
spontaneously.
Yeah,
So,
get in the. Do you have a license? Here's my driver's license. Okay, you're fine. Get in the police car. So I have the police thing on, and we talk through the scene very quickly because it's just time is money, and
mm,
and the young man I was playing with, who was wonderful, generous young actor, is the most important part of the scene. I'm supposed to pull him over and rough him up and
mm,
take a bribe and go away, and that's the scene. And it was shot in one take. I mean, that's a big difference in film is the level of technology is spectacular. There were three cameras shooting the scene, so they were getting all kinds of angles just, in one take and, in one shot. But I had to drive this police car and then I had to
mm.
put the car in park and then I had to play the scene all in one thing. And, I hadn't been on a film set in probably 7 months. So, you're nervous and you don't want to mess up. And
And it's a big budget movie, yeah?
it's a big budget movie and I want to do a good job, of course.
Yeah, sure.
But I had to pull up behind the car that I pulled over, to be the policeman and pull this kid over and then shake him down. Uh, it was the Penguins Maserati car, which was probably that car must have been, a $500,000. It was a
Mm,
very expensive, really cool sports car that I had to pull up behind. And it was a very practical thing, Urson. Before I could finish doing the scene, I had to first park the car and I had to tell myself, as nervous as I was, put the car in park because the last thing I wanted to do was to park the car, get out, play the scene, and have the car roll into and smash the penguin's car. So I thought, okay, I didn't destroy the car. I didn't run anybody over. It was a successful day on set. We did it in a few takes and everybody was happy. So to this, so those are the small victories
Yes.
in being a co-star and a guest star in these shows, is just to do your job to the best of your ability, to show up, to be of service to the show, and maybe to do a good job. And I think I
Yes,
accomplished
yes.
that. So we'll see. It'll come out in the fall.
Have you ever thought of, writing a screenplay, making a movie on yourself? Is
I've
that?
written I've written some plays. I've written
Yeah,
some.
I just heard that before, but you maybe for a feature film or something, any ideas for that? Or you said no?
Again, the theater is what I know really well. I don't I
Mm,
don't I don't have the same passion for writing movies because it
yes.
doesn't grab me in the same way. It's theater is what I know the best and what I have the most experience in,
Mm,
and I feel where I can contribute the most to. And film and TV is a welcome
yeah.
addition, whatever happens. When I get asked to do that, I feel very, very happy. And of course, TV and film pays better than the theater, so it's nice to
Yeah.
have money in my pocket.
Reese, have you written a book before, something like that? Is there
Never
any?
written. I've had a lot of people because I have many, 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 many stories about my time in China,
Yeah, would be
especially
great
about
having a book or something like that.
training with that guy in Chinatown. It turns out there was some organized crime that was around Chinatown, and this seafood that I was training with that I did not know anything about.
Mm.
A lot of very strange, wild stories. And anytime I tell people about my time in China or training with this guy in Chinatown, with the gangs around, people say, I don't believe it, or you should write a book because I've never heard a story like this before. So maybe, I mean, I have thought about it because it
Would
was
be
such a
amazing. Yeah.
it was such a special time, to be in China at that time, and then to also, whom I haven't mentioned, and I just want to give a brief mention too, are some of the Chinese actors who were in the movie with me. Mr. Zhang, who played Sanda in the movie, a very accomplished. You see him in all kinds of movies, but he was a man who was the head of the Shanghai Children's Theater. He had a whole career in theater before the Cultural Revolution. He was such a kind, kind man, and so gentle with me, and so generous, and had such a wealth of experience, not only in film, but in life and in theater. And there were nights when there wasn't anything to do back then because we were in
Mm.
the middle of nowhere and you'd shoot for 16 hours. You sleep for a few hours, you get up and you do it again. But if we were staying at the same hotel, sometimes I would sit with him at night and we would have tea
Mm.
and he would tell me about his life and
Deep
about his
conversations. Yeah.
I mean, deep, deep conversations. He was such a kind man. Zhang Hong, who played Alice Zhang Hong, who played Ashima in the movie, she and I were friendly, but I was also told you can't talk to her off set because they think you're corrupting her. So I didn't get a lot of time
Mm.
to spend with her uh, off set. But
Yeah.
again, it
What a
was these
mess. Yeah.
it was these conversations and these people that changed me. It was the kindness, it was the resilience of these people who lived in China who were actors and were able to keep it up no matter what, that changed me. So I have so many wonderful memories and stories of my time with them and my
Mm.
time working on the movie.
Would be
Yeah.
great having something like a book or,
Okay.
maybe in the future.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I always think, oh, who's going to want to read that? But every time I tell stories, people say, I would love to read that. So I'll take that. I'll take that as another sign
Yeah.
to put pen to paper and write about my experience there.
And have anybody or was there any plan of doing a sequel to that movie? Ever been
No,
something like that?
I have dreams about it all the time. I have dreams that I'm back in China and we're shooting.
You have real
Yeah,
dreams
I
about it?
dream I dream a lot about being in China or
Mm.
about going back to do American Shaolin too. And I think that, I mean, I think it would make a very interesting story
Yeah,
to see
let's
what
do
happens.
it.
I see. Well, listen, man, I was such a fan of the Karate Kid when I was young, and I see this Cobra Kai, and it's like, oh, that's really cool to see these
Yeah,
actors who have now aged and they do it
it's
and
a
they
great show. Yeah.
I think it's a really good show. I think its heart is in the right place, and I think those actors are so wonderful in that show. So it would be an honor to do something like that.
So,
Again, I keep up with like I see Cliff Lenderman on social media, and I see what he's doing, and I still see that he's teaching, and every time I watch him do a workshop or a seminar with the Filipino martial arts, I'm stunned at how his level of mastery. And I'm so humbled to have been able to
hmm,
not only act with him, but to train with him a little bit. I would in a heartbeat, I would do another movie with him because he's
yeah, great.
such a unique man. Yeah.
So if Netflix ever sees this, maybe a show is coming in the future, American Shaolin.
Anytime. Just call me up. I will be there tomorrow. I
The,
will be on a plane to
the,
China tomorrow.
yeah, great. Wow, Reese, so great stories. And what is the current play you have on stage?
I've got a few plays coming up. Um, I'm going to be in Milwaukee, which is in the middle of the United States in the Midwest, right near Chicago. I'm doing a play called The Moors, where I play it's a very strange sort of magical play that's sort of like a dark fairy tale. I play a talking dog.
Okay.
So I play a mastiff.
How you play talking dog? So you're in the background or?
No, he's a big character in the play. He talks, people don't hear him talk, but when the audience hears him recite poetry, he's a deep old soul that people just think is a dog in the room. So
Ah, okay.
it's hard to completely describe that play, but I'm going to be doing that in the fall, and
Sounds sounds good.
I'm doing the fight choreography for it as well. So there's stage violence, and I do that a lot as well. They've hired me to choreograph some violence. Which I'm really happy to be doing. I love to do that as well and to direct. And
Hmm.
then right from there, I go into a classic play called A Christmas Carol, which is Charles Dickens' A
Yes.
Christmas Carol. I'll do that in Milwaukee. This is my seventh year playing Bob Cratchit.
I think you got a praise for that one when I remember or anything saw on the internet for
People
that
seem
role.
to like that one. Yeah, people seem to like it. So I'm going to do, yeah, The Moors and then Bob Cratchit, and then I'm doing another play in Milwaukee after that called Circle Mirror Transformation, which was on Broadway a few years ago, and it's a great play about the theater. So I have a bunch of work lined up, and I'm very happy about that.
Great. So you mentioned before previously that you have grown up with famous people. You want to mention any of those you have
Ah,
contact with?
name drop. My God. You know, a good friend of mine I went to college with, we were in the same conservatory, is Seth Gilliam.
Hmm.
Seth is an actor who was in Starship Troopers. He played Sugar Watkins in Starship Troopers.
Yes.
And he's also in The Walking Dead. He plays Father Gabriel in The Walking Dead.
Ah, yeah,
He was,
okay.
he was on
Yeah.
he was on The Wire. He was an original cast member on The Wire. Anytime Seth and I get together and we're walking through Manhattan, it's we went out one night. There was a reunion for my college, and we were out
So
hanging
you
out.
were in college together then?
We were in college together for 4 years. We were in the same acting group.
Hmm.
We started out with 30 actors in my freshman class, and by the end of the 4 years, we were cut down to 11. People
Oh.
dropped out, people were thrown out of the program. It was like that show, that old American TV show Fame.
Hmm.
It was a very rigorous program. But Seth and I have known each other, and I have some very close friends from that program. But Seth and I were at some college function, and we were walking from a restaurant to a bar where people were going to be meeting up, and we were walking through Herald Square where Macy's is, and all of a sudden a fight broke out. And Seth saw these guys who were ganging, three guys on one, and he went to
Hmm.
jump in the middle of it. I thought, oh no, I don't want to get into a fight with these guys. All right, but he's my friend. I have to go in. Like I go in expecting to have his back and to have these guys attack us, and they all recognized him from the TV show The Wire.
Hmm.
And they stopped the fight, both sides. They were like, "Oh my God, oh shit, look at you.
Hmm.
Give me an autograph." And he took pictures with everybody and selfies, and just his mere presence of being a famous actor diffused the
Hmm.
entire fight. They forgot what they were angry
Save
about.
the
It was
save.
amazing. I thought, "Oh, that's great." I mean, if fame is good for nothing else, you saved a guy from getting beaten up tonight, and
Hmm.
probably us as well. So it was good. It was a good reminder. Yeah, he's a close friend who has a lot of
Great.
yeah, yeah. And a lot of other people that I was in school with that don't necessarily mention, bear mentioning, but there were
Mm.
a lot of famous people who went to SUNY Purchase. So you can Google them.
S- So, Reese, what about you when you're in New York, Manhattan? Any people, there are also kinds of people, anybody recognize you? Hey, you're the guy from that movie.
No, when I was that's what was amazing to me when I was in Germany. I had no idea that this film was popular. I did it.
Mm.
It came out on cable TV. It came out on video, and some people say, "Oh, I know you from." If I tell them that I was in a movie, they say, "Oh, I remember in the 90s that was on Cinemax or that was on whatever, right?
Mm.
And the DVD," but not many people. And when I went to Germany,
Different story.
couldn't believe it. We were in the we because I was in the, as I said, it was an autograph signing, weekend, and there I was sitting with Don the Dragon
Mm.
Wilson, is to me like, like a superhero. He's
Yes.
the one of the best kickboxers of all time and an actor, and we're in the lobby and everybody was having a drink at night, and Cynthia Rothrock and Jeff Speakman and all these luminaries. I was just a martial arts kid who looked up to them, and I
Yes.
couldn't believe I was in their company. And the woman who was working at the hotel said, "I don't recognize any of them, but I know who you are."
Great.
And I was blown away by that. I was like, "Are you
Yeah.
serious?" She said, "Yeah, your movie was very, very popular here." And I was so, taken aback by that it was very humbling in the best of ways. And also at that signing, there were I had the experience of having like a lot of fathers with their little children coming up and wanting me to sign the DVD because they remembered the movie from their childhood and they wanted to share that with their kids. And that to me, if nothing ever happened again from that movie, I never heard anything from the movie again, it would be that. It would just be that it's made a difference in some people's lives. I sometimes get emails from people who say, I was at a refugee camp in Africa when I was a boy, and
Mm.
I loved watching the story of this kid who could overcome hardship. And I hear that and I think it just makes me so it's such a humbling, I can't really describe it. It's such a humbling experience to think that you've had that effect on people just by your work. It's what I wanted when I did the movie, but I didn't expect it to happen.
Like I said, I mean, you were born for this role, you even prepared for it, before you
Crazy,
knew, joining that movie. It's
crazy.
kind of like that. So it's about time to come to Germany again, I guess.
I would love to. Beautiful country. It's an absolutely beautiful country.
Yeah. And any advice for, yeah, new actors out there?
It's a hard business, you know? You will find your way if you really want to do it. If you don't want to do anything else, you will find your way either in film or TV. If you're an action movie actor, work on your martial arts night and day. The hard work will pay off. I didn't know I was training to be in this movie when I was doing karate. I was just
Mm.
doing karate to try and be the best martial artist I could be. But I see what these kids are doing now with the parkour and the flips and all this, like
Mm.
the choreography now
It's
is
amazing, yeah.
stuff that I could never even dream of back then. And so I would say if that's your path, if that's what you want to do, stick to it, train very hard. If you just want to be an actor, I would find a teacher who speaks to you, find a good teacher. I would say do some theater because that's really, that's theater is really the essence of acting. There's nothing else but you and the audience and the story. And nobody's going to cut from A to B. And you just are, it's just you and them in the play. Um, but I think what you really need, it's a very strange life because I have met the best people in the world. I'm so grateful for the people that I've met and their kindness. The people I was talking to you about who are on set, the
Mm.
actors that I work with, all the stories, all the people I come into contact with. That's the best fringe
Mm.
benefit of being an actor. But it takes a tremendous amount of endurance. You have to have a somebody once said, it's the most vulnerable people in the world, the most sensitive people in the world, and yet you have to have a skin like a rhinoceros to be
Mm.
able to deal with the rejection. because, they don't know that they want you. Nobody wants you. You have to find your way. You have to let
Yeah.
them have to show up, and you have to get lucky, and you have to endure. If it's what you want, you make the sacrifice, and you see where it leads you. I would also say one last thing. Surround yourself by that which inspires you.
Hmm.
If you really want to be an actor, surround yourself with the movies that you love. Surround yourself with the music that feeds your soul. Surround yourself with the books that feed your soul, that remind you this is why I got into this in the beginning, in the first place. Theater does that for me. The great playwrights remind me, oh, this is why, because these poets make me feel less alone. Because 90% of the time, the business does not want you. They don't want to
Hmm.
have anything to do with you. And you have to be able to come home, and you have to do whatever you need to do, cry, scream, punch a pillow, and then get up and do it the next day. But
Yes.
if you're surrounded by inspiration, whatever that inspiration is, whatever art you need to surround yourself with, that will get you through, because it's a hard life and you need that inspiration to consistently remind yourself, this is why I want to do this. And I've been able to consistently remind myself of that for a long time, and I'm very lucky.
Great. I hope many people see this and, great advice you've given there. And what about choosing the right agent? Some,
I got lucky, I went to a drama school, and I got my agent right out of school. It's very hard to get an agent. It's very hard to get people to look at you. And I'm not great at the business aspect, which has changed. However,
mm,
this is what you need to do. You need to make use of social media. I see many people do it much better than I ever did. Put yourself out there, get a reel together, get your website together, do all of these things that I haven't done very well, and pursue that like you would pursue, if you're an action person, pursue your martial arts, and then pursue the business side, and
good
ask for help.
marketing, you mean?
Advice. You have to market yourself. You have to do all this, because agents are hard to get to pay attention to you. And
Mm,
again, I was very lucky. And I had the same agent for almost 25 years, and now I have a different agent who's lovely. But that's what you do. You find your way.
great. Any favorite movies you want to mention? Five of them, best
My
of all
five
time.
five
Do you have
favorite
any
movies.
list?
Yeah, I do in my head. My favorite movie of all time is The Deer Hunter.
Okay.
It's a Michael Cimino movie starring Robert De Niro and
Yes.
Meryl Streep. Uh, The Deer Hunter.
It's on the first place.
Yeah, that's first place. God, all the Coppola movies.
Yes.
Apocalypse Now, A
The
Streetcar Named Desire,
old classics.
Citizen Kane. I'm not going to get this list right. Uncle Buck. John Candy was my favorite comedian.
Yeah.
And in terms of martial arts, Enter the Dragon. And then
Enter
the
the Dragon, yeah.
Bruce Lee, of course, and then Gordon Liu is a very close second with the 36 chamber or the Master Killer, as it's sometimes called over here.
Yeah.
36 chamber of the Shaolin Monastery is such an amazing kung fu movie. I mean, you want to see a Shaolin Temple movie? Watch that movie. That's as good as it gets.
What about actors and actresses? Any?
John Malkovich is my favorite actor. I've seen him. A lot of these are actors that I've seen in the theater. John Malkovich is probably the greatest performance I've ever seen in person on the stage. Al Pacino,
Hmm.
Mickey Rourke, I think, is one of the greatest actors. If you
Yes.
just the wrestler, uh,
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah.
Mickey Rourke is brilliant. So I would say, yeah, John Malkovich, Al Pacino, Mickey Rourke, Meryl Streep is probably, for my money, the greatest living actor. She's staggeringly good at
Hmm.
everything that she does, theater, film,
Hmm.
any. Um,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I mean, the
Robert De
list.
Niro, maybe. Deer
Yeah,
Hunter.
I love De Niro too. I guess I'm more of a Pacino fan because I've seen Pacino play in the theater. And again, my perception is clouded by, that's the thing about being in the theater, is you're breathing the same air as these people. And there's something that that happens a different time in a different way every single night. No audience is the same, therefore no performance is going to be the same. And so
Mm.
what the actors are doing is they're taking your energy and through their skill, they're giving it back to you. And so when you're in the theater, you have a loop of energy that you can feel in the room. You're in the same room together, breathing the same air. And to be with those actors is something that I will never, ever, ever forget watching those performances. So, yeah.
So I believe Al Pacino is more on stage than De Niro, right?
Yeah, De Niro's done a few plays. He's been on Broadway. And all of those guys were, acted in the theater in the beginning part of their career. Listen, De Niro's a great actor. Again, The Deer Hunter is my favorite of his roles. He moved to a small town in Pennsylvania in the United States and got a job working there. I've heard Matt Damon do the same thing for one of the movies that he did. He got a job as a bartender. Matt Damon's fantastic. He's a great actor.
Mm.
There's so many great actors. How do you choose? Um, but yeah, De Niro, that's De Niro's, I think his best work in my opinion is that that guy who goes to Vietnam and comes back and has to deal with his life before and after the war and his friendships. He's brilliant in that movie. And
Reese,
Godfather Part Two, obviously. Anyway, sorry, go on.
what about the future projects beside that stage plays you mentioned before?
Huh?
Any more information regarding the future?
I've got some possibilities that are coming up, but I don't want to speak about them yet because the
Okay.
contracts haven't been signed.
Yeah.
As I said, the Penguin is coming out. You'll see me as a Gotham City police officer in the fall in the Penguin. Uh, and I also write. I've written some plays and I actually have a meeting tomorrow. I'm trying to get one of my plays produced right
Best
now. So
luck for this
thank you.
meeting.
Thank you. Yeah.
Then, Reese, thanks so much for
Oh, Urson,
joining.
my goodness. I hope that
That
I've
was
given you
great.
I
Yeah.
feel like I perhaps talked too much and I didn't listen
No,
enough.
no,
I
no.
apologize.
No, it was a pleasure.
But please know how, if I leave you with nothing, I want to leave you with how grateful I am. How grateful I am for the life that I've had and the opportunities in American Shaolin, and also that the movie affected people like you. It means the world to me, more than any sum of money. It really, really means the world. So
It
thank you so
did.
much. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Reese. Damn, it really means so much for me. And yeah, and just stay positive, and we will stay in touch.
in touch.
Have a
Okay,
nice day. Bye
beautiful day.
bye.
Thank you again. Bye.